Hi everyone, welcome back. I thought I would talk about the 4 palettes that are in my collection right now that are exciting me the most. Initially, when I was trying to think of video ideas to film today, I was like, well, why don't I talk about like my top 5 favorite palettes? But then I realized I was gravitating towards things that were really exciting me lately and were not necessarily like long-term favorites. So I just wanted to discuss these 4 palettes that I found the most inspirational in the last few months. Now, we have been in social isolation, well, at least I have been, for 8 weeks now. So some of this might have been the most exciting just before we got into social isolation, because obviously I've not been doing my makeup with any kind of consistency aside for weekly get ready with me's. But these are definitely ones that I am really enamored with in my collection right now, and I just want to talk about them. So the first one I have to mention is one that I was very excited to get my hands on, but I was very apprehensive about it initially because the price tag was exorbitant. That is the Melt Cosmetics Muerte palette. I think this retails for 77 Canadian, and I managed to get it on like a super steal. I think Sephora was having like 20 bucks off a $75 order, and this is 77 or 76. So I got that discount, and then I think I had gift cards from work for Sephora. So I think I paid something ridiculous, like only $10 for this palette, which was great because I had never tried Melt Cosmetics formula before. And I was a little bit concerned that I wasn't going to love it. And I know you can return stuff to Sephora, but I don't always love doing that because I know they have to destroy the product, because obviously no one's gonna take a used palette back and put it back on the shelves. Anyway, I snapped this up and I have been so in love with this thing. I filmed a full review with 5 looks and swatches video that I can link to down below, and everything that I did with this palette was gorgeous. It is such a deep, vampy, nightshade, foresty, winter, but also like moonlit kind of palette. It's very ethereal in sort of a dark sense of things. So I tend to like a lot of like fairy colors and sparkles and all that kind of stuff. But I do like the other side of that, like the deeper, sexier, rough kind of colors that are more nighttime oriented. And this is that palette for me. Initially, I was worried that there weren't going to be enough like transition colors that you could work through the crease, or that the colors just really wouldn't function together too well, because some of them appear really similar. Like all the colors sort of like here look very, very similar. But on the eyes, they are transformative. They look different. You can create so many gorgeous looks with these. And I mean, you can veer towards the softer side of things and use like the more teal colors with like the beigey golden one over here. So you can make softer looking eyeshadow looks, but I don't think that most people are buying this wanting to do that. And when I picked this up and started creating some deep and intense looks, I was so taken with the color story here, because I feel like we've sort of been lacking something this deep in a colorful, you know, array of shades, that I felt like this filled a big gap in my makeup collection. Because when I went to grab for this palette, initially for that video and then for consistent looks after that, I found myself doing different things with my makeup that I otherwise would not have done if I was not given just these options in a palette. There is something super rich, attractive, and sexy about these colors, and I really don't think I've ever called an eyeshadow palette sexy, but there is something that is just super enticing about this palette. It really does get me excited, and I'm so glad that I picked it up. I love all of the matte colors in here. There's fewer shimmers than there are mattes, but that's very appealing to me. And this was one of those palettes that, again, I was worried that I wasn't going to love, and now that I've got my hands on it, I am so deeply enamored with this thing. I will point out that I don't love the Vita palette like I like this one. This one, ooh, that caught in my hair. This one was the definite winner for me. Vita kind of, oh, my hair got fully stuck in there, great. Vita kind of fell flat for me, but Muerte stole my heart for sure. So this is definitely like one of the most exciting palettes in my collection right now. You know, I'm looking at all the palettes that I'm mentioning in this video, and I'm realizing there's a trend amongst all of them here, and that is that I waited a while to buy them. I didn't just impulse buy them on the first day that they were launched. I kind of hemmed and hawed over whether I should pick them up or not, and waited several months in order to get them. So maybe that kind of tells me something about my shopping habits, and maybe I should wait a little bit longer to pick something up, because I waited for these and I'm loving them all. So the next one I waited for is the ColourPop Blue Moon palette. I did know that I wanted to order all of the kind of monochromatic rainbow colored palettes that ColourPop was putting out. But I waited on the blue one for a while because I have a lot of blue eyeshadow, and I initially didn't think that there was anything that unique looking about this one. I knew I was going to get it because I mean they're really only 12 bucks and I did want sort of that whole collection of the rainbow, but I waited a while on it. And when I initially got it, I actually kind of put it in my makeup basket where I put my new products and forgot about it and didn't try it for a little while. And then eventually I started playing with it. I was just like, holy smokes. These colors are so vibrant that they actually really appear almost neon and luminescent on the eyes. Now they don't perform like neons. You're not gonna be struggling to blend these whatsoever. They're not chalky. They're not like super hyper white pigment based, you know, where it's hard to blend the colors. But for whatever reason, these blues in particular do really come across in a very neon aesthetic, and I love it so much. I love the variety in mid-tone blues. You've got Fine China, Starry Eyed, and Moonlight here. And Moonlight I had thought would look a little bit dated because I did have that sort of like pastel blue color back in the 90s that I put all over my eye. But this one doesn't really look like that color did, which is a good thing. I do have a full tutorial on how to wear blue eyeshadow, like exclusively blue eyeshadow on the eyes without it appearing too clown-like. So I can link to that video down below if you're interested, because it did utilize this palette, and it shows you how you can create a look that is very vibrant and very intense and very blue, but without pulling in any neutrals, which I prefer. If I'm wearing color, I don't love to bring in neutrals because I feel like it kind of desaturates the look and makes it less impressive to me. And I know some people are always talking about, well, use neutrals with colors in order to make yourself more comfortable with color. I don't love that because I often feel like it muddies the colors. So anyway, I will link to that video down below because I was really happy with the look that came out of that. And that was using this palette. I love the shimmers in here so much too. Billie Jean is kind of, it looks a little bit like a gunmetal blue, but there's this beautiful, almost like tilting purple reflect to it. It's like a blue purple, not truly purple, but it's gorgeous. Lumi is one of those absolutely fun inner corner highlight shades, or you can put it all over the lid. It looks like a white, but it has that blue kind of reflect to it. It's a duochrome. It is stunning. And one of my favorite things about blue palettes is when they put in a deep navy matte blue, and that color is clued in right here. That looks so good on the inner corner of the eye. There's something, maybe it's just me that really likes that, but I really like a dark navy in that area. You can, even if you weren't just using this whole palette, you could grab like a gold, put it all over the lid, and then put a deep matte blue in the outer corner, and it looks stunning. So I was really happy that we had clued in this palette because it really sort of tied everything together. So yeah, this Blue Moon palette has been an absolute winner, and I think I've reached for this more often than I've reached for the other palettes in the rainbow that ColourPop has done. I think this has been consistently my most used one, so I'm really pleased with this one. So I'm gonna pull out a neutral palette now, which, you know, isn't generally what gets me excited about in makeup, but this Tati Beauty Textured Neutrals Volume 1 palette is so exciting to me. And again, this was another palette that I waited a while to buy. I didn't get it on her initial launch because I looked at it and it was pretty, but it was also very neutral. And I was like, hey, I just don't need it, you know? But then over the months between the first release and the second release, I just saw a lot of really good reviews. I heard people talking about the glitters and how neat they were and how the formula was just really nice to work with. And although I do not need another neutral palette in my life, I was genuinely curious about the formula of these because I had appreciated Tati as a person before. I don't watch her as much anymore. I don't watch her anymore. I'm not subscribed to her, but I had really appreciated her work ethic because she put out like videos 5 days a week, Monday through Friday for years. And I was just so impressed at her sort of quality control in that respect. So I kind of figured that if she was going to be releasing an eyeshadow palette, she was going to put that same kind of attention to detail that she had with her videos into the palette, and I feel like that is absolutely an accurate statement because I find this thing to be damn near flawless. This is wonderful to work with. For me, by far, the most exciting thing about this palette is the glitter row up top. I have never encountered pressed glitters like this in my life. You do not need a glitter glue to work with them. You don't even need a primer, and they do not crease. I am very susceptible to creasing in my eyeshadows. Powder eyeshadows will crease at the drop of a hat for me if I don't double prime my eyelids. But for whatever reason, whatever she has put in these glitters They do not crease, and it is wonderful to use. And they're also interesting colors. I know they look kind of bland on camera, especially for somebody who loves color like I do, but there is something very cool about these, especially Aura over here. It's kind of like a taupey shade, but it's more pearlescent when you get it on the eyes. There's teal, blue, purple, green shifting colors in there, and it is wonderful. Poet over here, kind of a pinky glitter, which is not necessarily up my alley, but it looks really nice with the berry shades down here. I even honestly like the more like bronzy neutral copper ones. They're so pretty and they are so much fun to use. I do find that the mattes are really pigmented, easy to blend, and beautiful, but one of the other things that took me by surprise about this palette is how much I enjoyed this metallic row up here. Those shimmers glide on the eye like silk, like butter. They just go on and they're creamy. You don't have to be worried about layering them even. There's just something so fluid about the consistency of that eyeshadow that it just glides on the eye and you've got like perfect pigmentation in one swipe. They're wonderful. The only slight, not letdown of this palette, it just didn't perform the way I thought it was going to, would be the sequin shadows. I feel like if you overwork them, you lose a lot of that sequin aspect to it. So for that reason, I don't find them that enticing. But honestly, the other three formulas in here are so wonderful to work with that it doesn't really matter if I'm not as enamored with the sequin formula because the other ones are so good. And of course, I am also super drawn to the fact that this is a very beautifully laid out palette. I always talk about how much I love cardboard packaging. So for me, that's a winner. But the fact that this is laid out in monochromatic columns is so appealing to me, and it really helps a newbie user use this. You can grab any column and make an eyeshadow look out of it, and it'll look pretty decent. I say that, and then I'm like, if you just did the black row, you might, if you're a newbie, you might struggle a little bit, but all of the other columns are really like easy to work with in that kind of sense. So I am so pumped about this palette. I'm so glad that I picked it up. It was a little bit expensive with the shipping and then the the customs weren't bad. They pre-charged customs, which was really nice. I think it came out to somewhere close to like 75 or 80 bucks with the shipping and all that. But the shipping was cheap and the taxes were pre-included, so that's nice knowing. And I am very excited for Tati to put out more palettes. I want a rainbow palette like this for sure, but honestly, I'm interested to see what other kinds of color stories she'll come up with. Because although she has her style, which is very elegant and put together and a little bit toned down for my taste, I feel like she knows how to hit customers with what they're looking for in palettes. So I'm really excited to see what else she comes up with, and I will absolutely buy whatever eyeshadow palette she puts out next, provided I like the color range. But I anticipate that it will be something equally exciting. So those palettes are, I suppose, a little bit newer in my collection than the next one I'm going to talk about. And new stuff generally does get me pretty excited, right? Like we're always thinking about like the latest items that we have that are exciting in our collection. But there's still one palette that I've had for, I think it's, maybe it's not 2 years, it might be a year and a half, that I've had for a year and a half that I am still excited to use every single time that I reach for it. And it's the ColourPop Chasing Rainbows palette. And pardon me if you have heard me scream about this one from the rooftops for a while now, but I cannot get enough of this thing. I used it on my eyes today for this look, and I can't do anything wrong with this palette. Seriously, I have created so many beautiful eyeshadow looks out of this thing, and I've never been disappointed. It's not a full rainbow because there is no green and there's no true red, but I'm still completely taken by this palette. Every time I make something, like I'm shocked at my own skill, which sounds ridiculous, but it's one of those things that where everything just works together. You become impressed with your technique just because the color range seems so seamless. I hope that makes sense. I have created some beautiful looks just using the cool tone colors, which are more at the bottom here. I do tend to gravitate a lot towards the yellow with the pinks and the oranges. I think that looks stunning. I use Keep Cool a lot. That's a deep matte purple, and it really works to deepen up the outer corner of so many shadows in here. I don't reach a lot for black, which is Prism down here, but I do feel like it does help to deepen up some of these looks. And if you want to do something super smoky, like put the Eclipse on the lid and then smoke it out with Prism, you can do that, which is funny because when you look at this palette, you don't really think smoky eyed, right? But I mean, you can take any of the browns with this shimmery silver and the black, and you've got one hell of a smoky eye. Now, in general, I am sticking to more of the colorful shades, and Again, I just love this thing so much. I'm pretty bummed because it was a limited edition item and it's since been discontinued, but this hung around for a long time. And like I mentioned before with the other palettes, I waited quite a while before I ordered this one just because I didn't figure that I needed it. But as soon as I started using it, I realized just how special this thing is. I really wish that ColourPop would kind of come out with like a volume 2 of it, because I've never seen them release a set of colors that has enticed me as much as this one, aside from like, you know, the monochromatic ones, which I'm super into. I really want like Chasing Rainbows Part 2, because I mean, it's partially the colors in this palette, but I do like the overall aesthetic. I'm deeply into rainbows. As you can see, I'm wearing a little Deadpool with a rainbow motif on my shirt. And yeah, so anything that kind of, you know, speaks to rainbows really draws me in, but they really delivered with the color scheme in here too. So those are the 4 palettes that have been exciting me the most in my collection recently. I know this one's been around for a very long time, but it is one of my absolute favorites to use in my collection. I hope you found this video interesting. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Bye! And if anybody just heard that, that's my cat who wants to play.